I'm sad in a way to have concluded the journey, but the adventure to pursue the Paintress will linger with me for some time.
This is a fantastic RPG experience that deserves your attention.
Clair Obscur Expedition 33 stands strong alongside its inspirations.
Okay, damn, I get it. It's not that I don't trust y'all, but I just don't trust y'all. Let me see what all this hype's about.
The following Thursday,
Okay. I got it. You were right. It's not that this game came out of nowhere for me.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
Honestly, I was a little afraid of it because it just looked too good to be true. There were really no expectations from this fairly new studio. Not only did they try to liberate AAA experience, with many studios passing on it, but at a $50 price point. $50? Why? Is it short? Does it suck? Oh, I get it. It doesn't work. It's ugly, huh? Or do you not like money? No. They simply did it so that more people would get their hands on it, which shouldn't be a mind-blowing strategy that you can already see it's paying off. But this really works if you deliver quality. So my biggest question is it really as good as everybody's saying, or is it all hype? I guess those are two questions. So let's take a look at Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now, I'm going to try my best to not show any spoilies, but I do want to touch upon like every playable character, but I will stay away from the big story chunks. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 takes place in a very dark Frenchy fantasy setting where every year for the past 67 years, a goddess known as the Paintress performs the gommage, which translates to erase. She paints a number and anyone with that age gets blipped. So there's really no old people because she started at 100 and now she's done at 33. So to combat this, Lumiere, the island this takes place in, sends out expeditioners to try and stop the Paintress before the next gommage, which makes the latest expedition, Expedition 33. There's been 67 before them, but this time it's different because they have some sort of device that can help. Made by engineer Gustav, aka Robert Pattinson. This was such a trip for me, man. Like, I think he looks just like him, but he sounds like a British Daredevil because he is voiced by British Daredevil. He's voiced by Charlie Cox. And I don't know if they were trying to make Gustav look a bit like Charlie and they were tweaking it so he doesn't look too much like Charlie and he just turned into Robert Pattinson, or they straight up said, F it, let's just make him look like Robert Pattinson. I don't know, but I think he looks like him enough to make it a bit distracting in a good way. Anyway, they set out on their expedition, and the second they reach some sort of land, bam! Pierce Brosnan f***s their shit up and kills everybody. Now, I can understand people telling me Gustav don't look like Robert Pattinson, but if you don't see 007 in this Renoir guy, I don't know what to tell you. This one is straight up copy and paste, and what's even trippier that he sounds like Gollum. Okay, not exactly Gollum, but he is voiced by the legend Andy Serkis. Then later on, this other character named Versa comes in, and he looks like a young Jim Caviezel. What the hell's going on here? Maybe that one's a stretch and I was way too deep into the actor lookalike thing, but I am literally concerned about Robert Pattinson and 007 suing Sanfo and her actor for image and likeness. I mean, if Lindsay Lohan sued GTA for this, she did lose by the way, but I think these two have a better case. I mean, damn. I loved it. I think it's really cool, but it's also a little bit distracting. Anyway, so the remaining members who survived the 007 attack eventually regroup, which includes Loon, this barefoot mage. There's something about feet going on in this game. Then Maëlle, who's 16 and is Gustav's foster sister. We have CL, who's this very chill, badass card lady. I already mentioned Verso. He's very mysterious and carries a ton of baggage. But when he joins, we have to go find his BFF, Monaco, who's a Gelestial who knows his way around and loves a fight. And finally, Eski, the most powerful being in the land. He's this mythical creature that the expeditioners didn't actually think was real. We start this story with heavy, heartbreaking loss, and it manages to hit you in the feels, even before you get to really know these characters. So even though that situation sucks, they understand it's the reality that they live in, and it's really their motivation to stop the Paintress. But 007's in the way. There's so much mystery and intrigue behind a lot of these characters that you really don't fully understand what the hell is going on until the very end. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that these are well-written characters. They're very compelling. There's downtime where they get to be fleshed out. And it's really clear and simple what each of them are about. This story is truly a roller coaster. It's very unpredictable. I thought this game was going to end about 3 or 4 times, but they just kept going. That's how epic these last battles are, because I was like, alright, this was it. It can't get any more grandiose than this. And then it did. I felt the story to be very impactful, moving, and just strong overall. The world building is great. They never really been off this island, so everything is new to them, and you get to see that in their eyes. And the variety in the environments really show the Clair Obscur of it all. I don't know what this means. I thought this was like an Agatha Christie or a Tom Clancy situation. I thought that was the name of the person who wrote the original story. But Clair Obscur, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it means the use of strong contrast between light and dark. Clair is the light, obscur is dark. And this is not only heavily implied in the story, but also in the different worlds that they explore. In one moment you're in a beautiful underwater world, then you're in this red mountain forest, or on a beach, or on a fiery battlefield, each being totally different from their main home. This game feels very, very French, not only because of the names of each character, but they also use French words here and there. And simply in the design of things, the architecture, Esque for example, the design of the clothes and certain outfits. I don't know, it just feels very French. What's Frenchier than a mine? And I don't know if that Nickelodeon guy, Dan Snyder, was a producer on this thing or what, but there's a lot of feet stuff going around in this game. I don't know, is feet stuff French? I'm not sure. I don't know, I'm not a feet guy, but you can let me know down in the comments if you're into feet. And while you're down there, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Oh my god. But let's get into the meat and potatoes, or the steak and frites of it all, if you will. The gameplay. Now, the short and sweet version to explain the gameplay is, it's a turn-based action RPG with quick time events, dodge, and parry included. And the long explanation is that it really took my stupid ass around 7 hours to fully understand the combat. Now, you're way smarter than I am, so you will pick this up way quicker, because it features your classic RPG actions of your items, skills, and attacks. And you spend AP points to use your skills, and you gain AP points by doing different things, dodging, parrying, attacking, or even with items, and even doing other actions. You have your base attack, and you can also shoot your AP points to hit weak spots on enemies with this free aim attack, which I found to be very, very, very cool. And this can trigger different effects with the Pictos that I'll get into later. What really makes this game different is that each character has their own little deal to them. So Gustav builds his overdrive and can use his arm to deal tremendous power. Leon gets these elemental crystals for every attack she does, and those crystals add effects depending on what the skill needs. A certain combination of crystals can affect or trigger other actions, maybe giving her an extra turn, boosting damage, heal, etc. Mael switches stances. An offensive stance gives her more attack but less defense. The defensive stance is the opposite. Virtual, she deals a ton of damage. So at the end of her performing certain skills, she will be left in different stances. So you really have to juggle that. CL has a skill that adds and consumes cards to enemies, so different attacks might apply a certain amount of cards on them, and other attacks consumes them, and the amount of cards determines the strength of her actions. Verso is similar to Gustav. He's building up his rank, with each rank giving a different boost to different skills, and Monaco has a bestial wheel with symbols of different skills. So when you use skills that have these boosts symbols on them on the bottom, you get that boost. He shapeshifts into enemies to perform different attacks. He starts out with a few of them, but as you go along, you will take down enemies where he'll get their skills. And the way this works in the story is that he needs to collect their feet. I'm telling you, there's something with feet going on. And our big fluffy guy Esque, he don't really fight. He's your form of transportation. So each character has their own little mechanic, and they don't really interfere with each other. Loon can boost Versal's rank or change Mael's stance. Everybody is very independent in that way. Of course, you can heal and provide different forms of boosters, revive, and that sort of thing, but each character is very much their own little combat system. There are a ton of buffs and debuffs effects that trigger extra boosts depending on the status of the enemy. So if they're burning, for example, and you hit them with something that triggers the bonus if they're burning, you might deal extra damage or can receive an extra AP or even another turn sometimes. It all depends on the skill. Enemies can be weakened by the elemental effects. They can resist to them, nullify, or absorb them and gain HP. And they all have their classic stagger bar as well. So it takes a lot of your typical RPG elements, but it makes the combat way more dynamic. I know pressing A in a timely fashion to try to get the most out of any action doesn't seem like much innovation, but if you pair this with a parry and dodge system that you would find in like a Souls-like, now we're talking. I very much struggle with the whole parry and dodge system because I don't really have the patience for it. I always think that the attack is going to happen before it actually does. So I'm usually always a beat early and end up missing the window. And this game really teases you with that because everything is just so dramatic. The actions, the attacks, everything is over the top, but in the best way, don't get me wrong. So it's not like they just go, hiya. No. There's a whole performance to every action. Coming from both sides, everything is so flashy and extra. That's really what makes the timing for the dodge and parry so tricky. They just move so damn much, so trying to read their attack for the first time can be really tricky. It really takes you seeing them a few times because they'll do a lot of slight little feints. Or what really kills me is that they'll hold on for an extra half a second, so I end up going too early. The parry window is fair, but there were a few times where I felt like I might have gotten it, but I guess I just must have hidden it too late. There's no feedback, so you're not actually told if you're early or late, and there's no prompt when to press the dodge or parry either. There's only a prompt for your actions. So parrying is tough, especially when you find a new enemy because you don't know what they're doing or how they're doing it. Their attacks don't have names, but they have a slight description as to what they might do, but you won't know the timing of it until they do it a few times. So again, at first I'm just pressing buttons to try to get lucky. The dodge window is larger, but you won't get rewarded as much as if you were to parry, because with the parry you will be able to counterattack. If the enemy attacks the whole squad, you can even do an expedition counter where they all attack for a massive damage. There are also some attacks where you have to jump to dodge and can also attack those while in the air. About halfway through the game, gradient attacks get introduced. These are even bigger attacks that both you and the enemies can do. For the enemy side, they kind of slow down and you have to parry it, and if you do, you deal back a ton of damage. And for you, the team builds up on this attack gauge, and they have an extra few cool gradient moves that they can do, healing or maybe do a cool attack, with them all sharing the bar, and it counts as an extra move in your turn, adding yet another wrinkle to the combat. And all this is really introduced to you very slowly and in a pace where it doesn't make it feel overwhelming at all. But I think that at the core of this game lie the Pictos. These are items that you can equip that give you stat boosts and abilities. These abilities really change how you approach each battle. There are just so many of them that as you collect them by completing the story, finding them, or buying them, your strategies and your form of attack really gets tweaked. Example of some Pictos can be you might get +1 AP for each dodge, +1 AP for each parry, you'll get 25% extra damage for burning enemies, or when your health reaches a certain percentage you might trigger something, maybe you start to deal more damage or apply shell to you. There's really a ton of these. There are supportive, defensive, and offensive types, and some of these even have a combination of two of those. Once you use a Pictos for 4 fights, you'll unlock its ability as a Lumina, so now other members can equip just the ability using required Lumina points. So early on when you discover these, you're really just trying to find out what works and how they work. But later on, when you have around 80 Lumina points to spend, you're really trying to find what's the best way to mix and match your skills with the Lumina because they work together in a way if you really want them to. There's also, as you level up, a ton of skills that you start to unlock. So the combination of this is what really makes the gameplay pretty unique because this is what provides a different experience for each player. If you play this game and you see me using my squad, it might be totally different the way you use yours. You might like how certain characters set up things that might be easier for you than the way I see it. And that flexibility in the gameplay, delivering a different experience for every player, is, I feel like, genius when it comes to game developing. So the battles are a great back and forth because there really is a lot to it, but it's a really fun and dynamic combat system that really builds upon your classic turn-based RPGs. A ton of enemy types whose designs get darker and more twisted as the game goes along, with some designs just being truly mesmerizing. Bosses usually have a couple phases, and there's a lot of them. And their scale is really different too, ranging from gigantor colossi with a cooter as a mouth to the mime I mentioned. And again, the dynamic of cracking the enemy code is really key, because at first they seem really tough, but once you've seen them enough and actually start to recognize a pattern, it's crazy how the same battle 2 seconds ago just feels like a walk in the park. So if and when your team gets killed, you can choose to send in the reserves, which I thought was really cool, giving you an extra chance to finish up the battle. I also really liked how they did the items as well. You have a set amount of them. You got one that heals, one that gives you extra AP, and your revives. And they refill after each battle. You can upgrade how many you can have at a time. And I really like that over just having 1,000 items in your item bag, with half of them just sitting there because you don't even really use them. All the other stuff, the boost, the debuffing, or whatever you could possibly want, come in the form of the Pictos. And I really like that system. I like that you can instantly change characters during expiration as well with a single press of a button. Their movements are pretty slick and fast, and there's some verticality to the world. You can jump and grapple yourself to higher places, and sometimes there are even little platforming sections, but these are really janky. The character movements and controls just aren't as clean as you would want them to be doing the stuff that the game wants you to. Something tells me this might have been by design because it's just really weird, but I'm not sure. There's these beaches that have some crazy platforming challenges that they want you to do. For example, the first one I found is this parkour one. There's another one that really takes inspiration from Only Up, where you're really just climbing and moving up along this level. And there's other really easy ones like just straight up races. But I did really spend a while in this parkour one because it just doesn't feel comfortable to platform with these controls. And at the end of it, all I got was an outfit. Didn't seem rewarding enough, but I still put it on with pride. The level design is pretty linear, but they are branching paths where you might hide a chest or even find a tougher fight that leads to really cool Pictos or something. There's also journal entries of path expeditioners, or what might have been my favorite is finding these merchants who sell stuff to you, but you can fight them to unlock an extra item from their stash. So although it is linear, I really wanted a map here because it's designed with a couple paths at a time. And just the way my brain works, I wanted to make sure I got everything that was in this section because I have the FOMOs. I like to explore every corner for the most part, and sometimes you might go down a path which leads to a cutscene and you just move on. And you can come back, but I mean, I'm already there. Why would I make an extra trip? It's not like you're lost without it, but like the paths do get tangly sometimes, but I really just felt the need of having a map. And I understand what the devs wanted. They said that they wanted players to naturally explore and discover the world, but the gamer in me really just wanted another map. There are a ton of side missions and side content as well. You discover secret bosses and whatnot, but there's no quest list or any way to track them. So a map and also, I guess, a side quest checklist would have really helped with that. There is a world map to the world, but it's just icons that show you where the different locations are at. Also, while you're in the outer world, you can set up camp where you can upgrade your weapons, talk to the squad, and increase your relationship status, which eventually unlocks more gradient attacks. The world I found to be a bit intimidating because early on I found a place I was too weak for, so I got crushed and just turned around and left it. So it made me feel like I wasn't supposed to do those things yet, so I was a bit confused and trusting that the game would send me back. But there's actually a mixed bag of stuff to do in between the story missions. But I really didn't go out of my way to do any of the side quests. I was trying to find pockets when to do so. So I did a couple, but when I finished the story, I still had a ton more to explore, which is cool. Levels are really captivating as well. The colors are vibrant, the design is wacky and crazy and then serious at times. But everything around the world is so captivating that I even ran past Shrek's toilet. Shout out to the internet. I didn't see that. Graphically, the game is gorgeous. Yeah, there's a couple flickers here and there with the shadows and some of the hair looked weird sometimes, but I usually end up blaming the Xbox Series S for that. But I also heard it happen in the more powerful systems as well. I will say sometimes, especially when Gustav does a base attack, the screen does get cluttered with too much theatrics going on, almost to the point where you can't really see the button, but I think that's still part of the charm. And I really loved how they would wear their battle scars after fights. They're all dirty and messy and bloody, and once you rest, it goes away. It's a little detail that I enjoyed. This game takes itself very seriously, but it's done right where it doesn't feel cheesy at all. Plus, there's still a ton of moments of levity sprinkled in. The music of the game is so dramatic and epic. It really dictates the feelings that you're supposed to feel in those moments, and it also ranges from very dramatic, very heavy, to very light and silly. Sometimes I thought there might have been too much emphasis on the music because there was a couple times where the music was even louder than the character's dialogue by default.
Let the world once again watch the sunrise without the shadow of her cursed figure.
I love that you can tell that this studio is a fan of JRPGs. They knew what to give RPG fans while adding cool twists to it. to make everything feel familiar yet very modern, fresh, and new. It's really one of those games that is really hard to put down once you start, so I won't be surprised if it gets Game of the Year attention, but I also think it deserves a spot on an all-time RPG list as well. Now, before you attack me in the comments, let me parry by saying, maybe the list is top 25, or maybe it's 50. I don't know, maybe it's 100, but it belongs in the list somewhere because of the too good to be true feeling it overcame, and it surpassed any expectations. Honestly, my first thoughts when I saw this game was, that ain't coming out, because it just looked too good. And maybe that's just my old school trauma showing, but this game looked like an ambitious game that would have been cancelled not too long ago by a big huge studio for being too different, labeling it as a financial risk. And then we would have seen reports and images on a magazine. Yeah, that's how old I am, in a magazine. And we would all cry because of how awesome the game looked. But in this case, this game is real. It's out. You can play it. You can play it now. I love that we live in a time where anyone from anywhere can make a name for themselves by truly making good shit. It is as good as everyone is saying, and no, this game is not all hype. This is an original game with a brand new idea, building on games from the past, mixing elements from different genres to offer a new experience and for $50. It's not a remake, it's not an HD remaster, there's no microtransaction, it's not a game just to be a game, just to collect a paycheck. It wants to provide an experience and do cool shit. And there's over 30 hours of gameplay in this game as well, just on the story alone. So there's way more than that with all the extra stuff you can do, making it well worth its $50 price tag. You would think this was made by industry vets. This is the studio's first game. And Sandfall Interactive came out of nowhere with a straight Frenchy punch to the face. This is so good that whatever they do moving forward will garner a ton of attention. This game is bad for big studios that take longer for worse content that are more expensive. Because Sandfall Interactive were able to deliver something more, faster, and for less. So hopefully more studios follow suit and end up replacing these old heads, because we already know they're not going to change their ways. I am super happy for this game's success, selling over 1 million copies in 3 days, because it's proof that gamers still want quality games with great stories to deliver a true AAA experience. But those are my thoughts on Clair Obscur Expedition 33. What are yours? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Is that totally Mr. 007 Mamma Mia Pierce Brosnan? Any and all thoughts? Let me know what you're thinking down in the comments. And while you're down there, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to always and forever, you do you.